Hi everyone. Today I'm going over a grass/psychic deck that I built. I got some decent results in recent tournaments by making day 2 in 2 of them, so I would like to give you my view about it. For some time now, grass decks didn't really counter dark, in my view, although there is Sceptile now that can do pretty well. Qingling was a thing, but in the end many of the top players ended up relying on dark. Grass didn't really contain it effectively. Grass had some solid support cards, yet the damage output didn't quite line up to reach 170 consistently. The main strategy of this deck is built around Bounded Field, from the newest set. We're playing 2 copies of this stadium. It doubles all super effective damage, unless you are attacking with a Mega. So, a 80 damage attack becomes 160. It's important to understand how it works with damage modifiers like red. You add the 20 damage from red before doubling, so for example, a base damage of 80 becomes 80 plus 20, multiplied for 2, so effectively 200. The core of the deck is Leafeon X, and we're running 2 of them. It has 140 HP, a 70 damage attack, and it can attach 1 grass energy to itself every turn. That makes it very consistent at setting up on its own. It can evolve turn 1 with EV. When you combine that 70 damage with weakness and the stadium, it reaches 140 against something like Hydreigon, or 180 to Mega Absol, if you have red. There's also a single copy of Baby Leafeon from Spacetime Smackdown. This one deals 90 damage. With Bounded Field Stadium in play, it can hit for 180. That number lets you take down Mega Absol in 1 hit. For the Psychic side, there's Indeedee X. With Bounded Field and red, it knocks out Mega Lucario X. Then we have Espeon X. It deals 80 damage, and in the same setup with Stadium and red, it can reach up to 200 damage against Lucario. Right now, this list sits in a really good spot, if you expect to face a lot of Absols and Lucario. Grass naturally lines up well into dark, and Psychic covers fighting, so just from a type perspective, you're already targeting 2 of the most common matchups. Also there's an Ogerpon to deal with special conditions. Ogerpon makes Blaziken and Sceptile unable to one-shot your 140 horsepower evolutions. I must say, I can see it struggle against Altaria Gran, if they play the stadium, but overall I'm pretty proud of this Psychic Grass Frankenstein. The idea for this list occurred to me from looking at Limitless.com. If you scroll through recent results there, you'll notice a pattern. Hydreigon and Lucario decks show up a lot. Seeing those 2 as some of the most prevalent options made me think about building something that could handle both at the same time. Limitless gives you a pretty clear picture of what people are actually playing. What I usually do when building a deck, is I often try to keep the top 4 or 5 most common opponents in mind, based on what I see there. The goal is to create something that has solid answers into those decks, rather than trying to be good into everything. That approach does come with a downside. When you go for an anti-meta strategy, you'll still run into non-meta decks, and those matchups can feel awkward because your list is tuned for something else. But that's just part of the trade-off. For the same reason, this isn't a deck I'd recommend if the meta shifts and dark becomes less popular. A big part of its value comes from targeting those specific matchups. At the same time, the new stadium opens up some interesting possibilities beyond this list. I'm talking about ranked matchups. You could start thinking about a more flexible Eevolution style deck that adapts depending on what you expect to face. The idea would be to rotate different builds centered around Bounded Field in and out, focusing on whichever ones hit for super effective damage against the most common decks. That kind of approach could be really interesting to see in ranked, where you can switch decks between matches. You'd be adjusting to trends while still keeping a consistent core. For this version built around Leafeon, that core would look something like 2 Bounded Field Stadium, 2 Leafeon X, 1 Leafeon, 1 Ogerpon X, 2 Red, 2 EV with 50 HP, and of course the Pokeballs, Research and Copycat. From there, you can tweak the surrounding pieces depending on what you expect to run into, while the main engine stays the same. I also looked at a few other cards that could fit into this kind of build. First, Giratina X. This one stands out mainly for the Lucario matchup. It can take a knockout on its own without needing red. The trade-off shows up in other matchups, where it doesn't contribute as much to the overall plan and can feel a bit out of place when facing dark. Then there's Baby Espeon. It deals 20 damage for each energy attached to your opponent's field. Against decks that stack a lot of energy, like Oricorio builds, it can put some pressure. It's more situational, though. Another option is Shalebi. It has a 40 damage attack that removes an evolution from the opponent's active Pokemon. I like this idea a lot and I hope to make it workable in the future. With red, that damage can reach the numbers needed to knock out things like Lucario or Altaria in one hit, which is definitely appealing. The main concern is the cost. 2 grass energy means you usually need to commit at least 2 turns of acceleration from Leafeon X. Celebi will often be a dead card. They are all considerable but I just didn't know how to fit them. I also don't think this is the definitive version of Espeon-Leafon. I think it's possible to improve this further. It surely could benefit from more consistency and a way to beat Oricorio. I don't think the current list can do too well against Magnezone Oricorio. The only thing you can do is put Espeon X and NDD and stall by healing 50 every turn and hope to reach turn 30 to get a tie. Or hope that the Baby Leafeon is enough, but then you have to face Magnezone X, and a second Oricorio after they switch it out, so I'm not fully convinced Baby Leafeon is enough. I think you would need an extra Baby Eevolution in that scenario. I hope the bounded field variants will be good enough in other matchups, otherwise people will still not play it and Hydreigon will shine yet again. There's also a good chance people will stick to Mega Sceptile, as the dark counter. Anyway, I hoped you found it helpful. Thanks for watching.